Hi everybody, underground developers or however you're called. I'm here on Tim's channel. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thanks for being here.
Tim finally tells us about the relationships that triggered this game, why it's so scary to work on this game, and why he wants it to end. We recorded another awesome video on my channel. Link to that should be in the description. I thought it was called Philophobia.
A couple people have thought that. I think I say it too fast in videos. That's the problem.
Yeah, it really sounds like Philophobia, but it's called Philophobia, which is called the fear of love, something like that. How do you even find a word like Philophobia?
So I'm weird. I actually keep a list of cool sounding words. It's like something that I've done since I was a little kid. I don't know why. Like if I hear a word that sounds cool, I write it down in my Evernote and I keep a list. And I remember specifically, I had that word in my list for a couple of years actually. I was just like, that's such a cool word, right? Like I didn't know there was a fear of love, like an actual phobia. And I thought that was cool. And then one day, I went through some rough stuff and I was scrolling through that list and I saw the word and it just kind of clicked and it matched with a prototype that I had. And I was just like, I'm just going to put those together. And,
so technically speaking, what was first, the word or the game?
The word was technically first.
Okay.
You ever, I don't know if you ever had this before, but like sometimes events can happen in your life that change the meaning of things. And like before it was just a cool word, but obviously like I went through some rough stuff involving love and coming back to that, it changed the meaning of the word for me and I kind of understood it in a new light, almost like an epiphany. And then it meant so much more to me and I had to do something with it.
Yeah, in some of your videos you mentioned that your game Philophobia expresses quite a bit about yourself. So obviously the question I was thinking about is, were you ever afraid of love?
Yeah, that's it. Sometimes I'm scared the game gets a little too personal. Honestly, that's been one of the struggles with it, is because it's too there. And I think fear. I don't know if it's fear. I think there's a fear of like intimacy there for sure. Like some kind of, I don't know. I've had a lot of experiences in my life where I've trusted people. I've like 100% like allowed them into my life, and then they do something that is fucked up, and so I think a lot of my life, especially like growing up, I was bullied in school and stuff like that. I've been kind of shielded, right? And so that's what I mean by kind of that new meaning that the word took on, because when I first saw it, oh, it's just a word, but then like going through a series of events and changing my perspective on things and being a little bit more guarded and trying to keep people out without even really knowing it, I kind of understood it, that like at least what the word meant to me. So.
Okay. There's a lot to break down there. So the first thing you said was you're afraid the game is getting a little too personal. Could you explain that a little more? Because it's hard for me to understand how that's even possible in a 2D platformer. How can a game like this get too personal? I mean, oh no,
Jonas,
I jump.
I don't know if you've been following my games, but the last game I made was a game about a space goat that shit cupcakes. And that's fun. And it's interesting. And it's like, hey, let's just do some dumb, stupid stuff and make a game. This game, unlike all of my other games, is like really tied to my emotions. It's tied to the things that I've been through. There are references and stuff in the game that nobody will ever understand. There's like hidden meanings to stuff. There's word choices. There's placements. There's shapes that are so deeply personal. It's weird. And this is the first game that I feel like is an expression of my soul. And it's scary because like when you make a game about space goats that shit cupcakes, it doesn't matter if people like it, right? Like you made it and it was fun to make it, and like you put it out there and you want to share it because it's so stupid. And because it's so stupid and it's so stupid, you're not scared of sharing it, right? The worst thing someone could say is that it's stupid, and you already know that. But when you pour part of your soul into something, and it's such a personal reflection of you, it's such a like core. I don't know. It's like it really is like a painting of my soul in a way, especially this part of my life. It gets scary, man. Like it, because like I was never worried about like financially being successful with the game. Like I know I'm going to sell copies because I have a decent sized audience, but I'm not even worried about the money. It's like I want to do the game justice, and there's a certain fear with that, like putting all of that heart and soul into it, and then maybe potentially making something that's not great. You know, I want people to appreciate it.
If you don't mind, maybe we can dig a little deeper into that fear. What I've been wondering about is how much of that fear is coming from the fact that you're actually having a game development YouTube channel and people know that you put a lot of time and effort into this. And are you a little nervous that people are going to say, oh, he talks about game development so much and now his game sucks? Or
oh yeah,
is there a little bit of that in there as well?
Not only that, but one thing I talk a lot about is marketing. And if you know, if I fail on that end, then everybody's like, oh my God, he talks about marketing, but he can't market his own game. No, totally. There's definitely fear there. I on it, like I'm sure that is a big part of it. But honestly, like I feel like it's more on the good game spectrum. Like, because I think, like, I love my community. Game Dev Underground is awesome. We have so many people from all over the world, and they're super supportive. And one of the things that you get from a super supportive community is I feel like they're going to be supportive anyway. You know what I mean? And that's actually one of the struggles that I have is, like, everybody tells me the game is good, and I'm kind of suspicious about that because I'm like, I wish people would stop telling me that and say, hey, Tim, this is what sucks. Here's what you need to fix or whatever. Because sometimes I feel like it has the opposite effect where people are fans of my content. People do watch my channel. When they see my game, they kind of bring all of the value that I've added to their life and mix it in with the game. And so they kind of just, I don't know, are predisposed to like it in a way because they like me. So that's kind of weird stuff goes through my head.
Yeah, I imagine that gets really complicated.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some insecurity in there too. When people tells you something is good, you know.
I mean, at this point, I can probably only repeat what Thomas Brush already told you. A great coach, a great trainer isn't necessarily good at playing baseball as well. So I think you're doing an amazing job at helping the game dev community, and no matter where the game goes, it's going to be fine.
Well, thank you, man. Yeah, I appreciate Thomas hanging out with him because that was nice to hear. But also, it's like there's some truth to that, right? Like you don't have to make like people in the end of the day, there are fans of like you as a person if you create your fan base that way. And I've kind of done that with the community. Everybody kind of helps and supports each other. So I don't really think there'll be a backlash. I just think, like, for my own personal sanity, like, I want to make something.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
You know?
Okay, so maybe can you tell us a little bit about the breakup you went through? In some of your videos, you mentioned, I think, that was what triggered you to make this game. So it would be interesting to learn a little bit about that, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much you're willing to share, so if you don't want to go too deep into this, I completely understand.
No, actually, because you showed me your questions ahead of time, that was the one question where I'm like, I don't really I'm not sure that one, but I let it slide. So I've actually never said anything public about that. I've just kind of been super vague about it, and kind of on purpose because like that was super personal to me. And so what happened? I was dating this girl I met online, and it must have been like at least a year or so of talking to her. And to make a long story short, she wasn't a real person. I got catfished. Some person created an entire identity to be with me, and then like oh my God, it was a mess. And I handled it so horribly too. Like the person, they stopped contacting me, so I thought something happened to them. So I got all worried. I hired a private investigator. I went crazy, like trying to find them. I found out the person didn't exist, but I tracked one of the phone numbers to a house. I called the house, and it was some lady's husband. And I was just like, what the fuck? And it was, anyway, so I'm not going to go into crazy detail.
Yeah, no.
But let's just say, like, dealing with loss of somebody is one thing, but then realizing that person doesn't exist is like a whole nother level of like loss, right? Like this whole thing has been a lie. You get angry, like, why the fuck did this person waste my time? Why would someone do that to you? Like, why? It doesn't make any sense. Not only that, but like,
I mean, what do they get out of that?
Yeah, I guess they got attention. I don't know. Like, I was happy they didn't ask for like money or some shit, because I definitely would have, like, you know, sent that over. But when you talk about intimacy issues, you know, that can contribute to something like that. Like, not only is this person like no longer there, but like they don't even exist. So that was rough for me, because like the problem with internet relationships, and I've learned this since, is that like when you're dating someone on the internet and you've never met them in real life, like your brain can kind of fill in all the blanks. And there's a whole bunch of blanks when you've never met someone online, right? Like you can kind of make this person the ultimate version of whoever you want them to be, because you only see 10% of like their personality. You can fill in that other 90% with all the good stuff that you want them to be, when that's not reality. So that's what I did. So the loss was like really rough for me. And like I don't want to say like I'm over it. It doesn't affect me anymore. Like a couple of years ago, I probably wouldn't have been able to tell the story, to be honest. I still don't feel 100% comfortable talking about it, but it's definitely taught me a lot of lessons. And it like I said, when it gave Philophobia a new meaning, because it made me like suspicious about like everybody. Like it made me really like question everybody's motives and intentions. It made me like, you know, really think about everybody in my life and why they're there and what they want from me. And it was rough.
Okay. I don't know what to say about that. Yeah, that's pretty heavy.
It was fun.
Yeah. I mean, you've built an awesome community of people that support you, luckily. And I think a big reason why you managed to pull that off is because you're so honest and straight up about everything you do. I really feel like your videos carry a lot of honesty. And from what I've seen from Philophobia so far, it's a game with a lot of heart, pun intended.
No, but I think honesty, you know, honestly, the breakup kind of triggered some of that too, because this person was deceptive, right? They had lied in so many different facets. They had deceived me, an entire human being. And part of what I decided to do out of that is, rather than let this person destroy me, I decided to do the opposite and like straight up be completely honest about everything, even when it's rough to be honest, right? Like most people struggle with that honesty, especially if it puts them in a difficult situation, or it, you know, it maybe doesn't make them look the greatest. And I've definitely shared some stuff that, you know, doesn't make me look the greatest, and stuff that other people probably won't share, because I believe in that honesty. And I think anybody that is deceptive in nature, they're not going to get very far in life. So
yeah,
it's a big part of it.
Yeah, I think we can really tell that you mean it, because you even do those YouTube reports where you show all of your numbers. So you just want us to know that you're 100% real.
Yeah,
and
I wish someone did that.
That's worth so much in this day and age, where you can just be anybody you want on the internet.
Yeah, totally.
And yeah, I totally try to do the same on my channel. So far, the numbers are not all that interesting. I'm just getting started, basically. But I try to be pretty straight up about my situation. Look, I'm not a professional game developer. I'm not a game dev guru. I'm just a dude living at home with his dad and trying to figure this game development stuff out.
That's what I like about your channel, by the way. Like the making games with you type of thing is, I think that's much more interesting than pretending to be a guru, right? Like I sent out an email a while back, said, I am not a game dev guru. Like I made that very clear. I don't want to be the dude that teaches you stuff from like an all high and mighty thing. No, I'm still learning stuff. I have a bunch of skills. I have a bunch of experience. But like,
yeah, I think it's very, very easy to be seen that way if you make a lot of videos about game development, even if you don't intend it to be like that. So
I still struggle with that, to be honest, because I get emails from people where you can tell that the language they use is clearly assuming that I have all the answers. And I have to like correct people like, hey, no, I don't know all the stuff.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that was a pretty interesting X-course, but let's actually get back to the game, into some more lightweight stuff, hopefully. So you have an awesome community. How do you think that has helped you with development so far? Maybe you can tell us a bit about it.
The community, honestly, is the reason the game is still working, to be completely honest. I knew this was like last year. Actually, it was around the same time last year, like August, September, where I announced that I was going to finish the game and push it out on Valentine's Day, February 2018. Obviously, that didn't happen. It got delayed a year. But I was not prepared for the amount of support that I got over it. And people still, like when I do live streams on my videos, Tim, where's Philophobia? What's happening with Philophobia? I get emails about it. I get messages about it. And like back, if I think back to myself like 2 years ago, right, without a community, without a support group, without anybody, just making games all by myself, yeah, I would have moved on by now. I would have just said this game is too much emotional bullshit, too much work, too much shit.
Yeah, I guess it always reminds you of what happened, basically.
Yeah. I mean, and too, it's kind of rough. Like maybe we'll get into this a little bit later, but like it's really rough because I have to finish the game, and I'm not necessarily in the same headspace where the game was created. So I kind of got to like tap into some darker stuff. So it takes a lot out of me, and the community has been so supportive that they're one of the reasons that I've kept going.
Awesome. And one thing I'm actually quite curious about is how do you balance that YouTube stuff with actual game development? Because I know that making daily YouTube videos is so much work. It takes so much time and effort. And I've really been wondering about the question, how do you balance development time with YouTube and community management and everything else that's going on?
Yeah, you're one of the few people that I think does understand, because you did it, right? You did it for a while. And I don't think balance is the right word. I think trying to hold on to everything as much as you can is how you do it. I gotta say, like the actual making games part has suffered a little bit. I won't call it suffered, but like the time that I've worked on games has kind of gone down because the videos are so much work, the community management so much work. I have to write emails, I have to create Patreon videos, I have to do a bunch of stuff to kind of keep it all going, keep this whole system working. And I think that like what's really helped me more than anything is I kind of have more than one passion, right? My passion is to make games and to express myself with art, but it's also to teach and share and be the person that I needed when I was younger. And there was nobody like me on YouTube talking about all this stuff. So there's like a deep intrinsic need for me to kind of share this stuff, which I think keeps me going. I think if I didn't have that, if I was talking about something that I don't really care about, like, I don't know, cryptocurrency or some other stuff, I would have quit a long time ago. Right. But the fact that like I really do love this stuff has really helped. And I think one of the things that I've recently just started trying, like I would say in the last 60 days, that's kind of helped the balance a little bit, is involving the community a little bit more. Like the Space Goats game we had, most of the ideas came from the community, right? Like a lot of the stuff was integrated. So that's a good way for me to like work on games and be with the community at the same time. And I've started experimenting with stuff like that, which I think is helping. But yeah, it's no right way to balance it completely.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach. My next question would have actually been, do you have anybody who helps you with the game, or is this a complete solo project?
So I think I'm going to have somebody help with music. Other than that, I think this is going to be completely solo.
Okay.
As of now, nobody has touched the game except for me. The music is, if I felt like I had the skills to make the music, I would. But music, I understand the importance of music, and I need it to be great. And I don't have the time to learn it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think that's going to be one part that I outsource. But everything else is going to be me.
Yeah, you have a really great teaser for Philophobia. And so much of the energy that trailer has comes from the music.
Yeah, I'm kind of embarrassed of that.
Before I saw the trailer, I never saw your game as such an emotional game, but it kind of clicked when I saw that. Okay,
yeah,
there's actually something in there, so that really worked for me.
I mean, even because that trailer too, it just has cubes and hearts.
Yeah,
that's all that's in there. So if you watch it without sound or without the words in it, you're kind of like, oh, it's a game where you hop around as a cube.
Yeah.
But with the music and with the words and all that stuff, it adds a little bit more. I honestly, that's one of the things I need to do because the game has changed so much. It looks drastically different. And I need to redo a trailer with some stuff. But, yeah.
Do you have any additional ideas for involving the community to help you out a bit? Because I'm basically just asking this from personal interest because this is something I'd love to do as well. But I feel like there are so many challenges with that. Copyright being the first one, it's pretty hard to ask somebody to create art or music for your game for free because you never know where that stuff is coming from, for sure. And
yeah, are you asking like?
Yeah, so actual game development or outsourcing some of the graphic design or whatever. I feel like that's not really an option. Would you agree with that or would you disagree with that?
For this game, no. And that's probably why I'm never going to attempt a game this deep ever again. Because, like, everything is a reflection of me. Like, sometimes there are hearts that are, like, misshapen in a weird way. Like, maybe they just have, like, a curve on the bottom. But to me, that's an actual representation of, like, a fucking photo that I have. Or, like, some weird stuff. So, like, nobody is ever going to know that, right? That one little curve in a heart is going to make a difference in the game, but like that's how it is. And I realized that like 3.5 years into this, it's probably a little bit unhealthy for me to like pour that much of myself into something like this. But you know, so for that reason, like I don't feel like I can outsource it. If I ever make Space Goats 3, like totally that stuff can be outsourced or whatever. You know, because I don't really care about it, but it's like this game is just so personal. It's probably
okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, since when have you been working on the game, and where are you at with the development? So, how much is complete? What's still missing?
Okay, so the game project actually started 3.5 years ago. So technically, it's been 3.5 years since I started the game. However, there's been big periods in there where I've completely stopped development on it, sometimes 6 months at a time, a couple months here, a couple months there. So overall, I probably have 8 months to a year within that 3.5 years of working on the game. And the game right now is probably about 50-60% complete. The basic narrative is done. The basic cutscenes are done. Some of the stuff that still needs to be done are a couple of the boss battles, a lot of level design. Like most of what I have to do is still level design. And then I need a mechanic design here or there for some of the later levels, because your heart is like your broken heart is like your utility object. So I need to design some mechanics for later on and how you use that depending on what section that you're in. Because it's broken down into the 5 stages of grief, like denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and all that. And the mechanics that you use reflect the emotion that you're feeling.
Okay. Maybe you can speak up a little bit because you're getting a little quiet at times. But I think it's fine. It's fine. Just letting you know.
Gotcha.
Okay. What was I about to ask? Sorry, I'm a little nervous as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So the next question, I completely lost track of the conversation, but I'm just gonna ask the next question I wrote down. What do you think was the biggest mistake you made in the development so far?
The biggest mistake. That's rough. I would say probably immediately, and this maybe isn't so much on the game design part, but one of the things I did at the end of last year was I announced the game and I announced the deadline. And it was going to be Valentine's Day, which was like 4 or 5 months from when I announced it, and I figured I could complete it. But the first thing that I did was redo all of the art assets and make everything 10 times better. So that, like, my timeline for completing the game was based on a game with a cube and some basic shapes. But then what I had actually done is changed everything into these actual objects with, like, their own designs and animations and all this stuff, and I just created a bunch of work.
What's the reason you decided to change the cube to a little character? Was there any specific reason, or were it just like doesn't look right anymore?
Well, yeah, I think the problem of a project spanning 3.5 years is that you gain a ton of skills, right? And the reason I started with cubes and hearts is because I couldn't draw. I didn't know how to make assets. That's why I started with basic shapes. The hearts in the original game are actually the pre-selected object from Photoshop. Like, it comes with a little heart object. You can just draw. That's the shape that's there, because that's all I knew how to do. I had since gained some art skills and some ability to make stuff, and I wanted to make it look better. And I think there was some insecurity. Like, that part I think was the insecurity about the game dev channel that we were talking about earlier.
Okay.
Because there was a comment that pissed me off on the trailer. It shouldn't have. Like, in retro, it doesn't affect me anymore, but it really did. It said something like, after everything I've watched from you, I honestly expect something better than this. It said something like that. And I was just like, fuck you. that hurt me, right? Like, that I think that was a big part of the motivation of redoing the art, honestly. That one comment, as much as I hate to admit that, like, that.
Yeah, it's pretty surprising, as much as you try not to care about these kinds of comments. And actually, most of them, 90% of them, you can just be like, oh, okay, whatever. But then there are a couple of them where it really just get you for some reason.
The people that want to tug the heartstrings, they go for the heart with the knife, you know? Like, if people say, oh, Tim, you're fat, Tim, whatever, they say just stupid stuff. Like, okay, I laugh at that. It really doesn't affect me at all. But, like, if it's something I'm insecure about already, and, like, they hit on that just enough, and they're not rude about it, like, super rude about it, because if they're super rude about it, they almost get to me anyway. But, like, they're just nice enough to, like, make it, like, hurt. Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I asked about the biggest mistake. Maybe there's some stuff where you think that's going really well. Is there anything where you would say, this turned out better than I expected, or this worked better than I thought? Or is there anything you're particularly happy about with how the development is going so far?
Yeah, a lot, actually. So the game, up until a couple months ago, was just a, like, kind of rage platformer, like Super Meat Boy-esque, just, like, super hard run and jump. But that's all there was in the game. And I was in my Elite Gold meeting, which we have, like, a paid mastermind group where we all meet twice a month. And we were talking about it because I wasn't, like, happy with it. And I didn't know why. I was just like, this doesn't, like, all you can do is run and jump. It just feels wrong. Maybe I'm getting bored with it. Maybe, I just don't know what's up with it. And I don't remember how it came about. I don't know if it was my idea or someone else's idea. It was probably a mix of both. But we ended up with using your broken heart as a mechanic for the game. And what we ended up implementing, like, so the first stage is denial, right? That's the first phase of grief. And in that section, you use your broken heart as a shield to like reflect stuff. And like, I feel like that's very metaphorical to what you're trying to do. It helps you play through the actual emotion because like it's an actual representation of denial. Like you're stopping.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So stuff like that, adding that little thing in and then changing the use of the heart throughout the different stages. So for anger, for example, you get like a shield bash type of thing where you're literally bashing people with your heart, and so on and so forth. And then we actually integrated the, I say we, really what I mean is me, myself and I, the whole team.
You and the community is how I interpreted it.
Yeah, well, you
develop a lot on live stream, so
yeah, totally. You know what? Actually, I don't give them enough credit, to be honest.
Yeah.
I totally should, because there's so much stuff and encouragement and ideas and random little tidbits that I take away from the live streams that like go into my brain, and then when I'm sitting alone, I'm just like, oh, I have this idea, but in reality, like it probably stemmed from like, you know, the thousands of conversations I had with tons of people. So you're absolutely right. Thank you for calling me out on that. But like people, so we integrated these mechanics into the actual emotions, but then they're also integrated into the boss battle, which adds this nice sense of like progression and learning and interest and engagement. And it was what the game needed. And I don't know how I made the game this long without having those implemented. So I'm super happy with how those would turn out.
That actually sounds pretty cool. You're starting to sell me on the game.
Good. Maybe by the end of this, I'll have a...
Try hard on. Just kidding. I'll definitely get it. Once it's out, I'll buy 3 copies just for myself. So, what do you think is the biggest challenge still ahead of you? So anything where you say, okay, this will be super easy, and I'm not so sure about how that will work out? Or are you pretty confident you're going to finish the whole project?
I don't know. Launch day is scary, man. Especially since I had an entire extra year and I've not gotten where I wanted to get with it. I've talked about this a bit in videos, but like there still has been like a month or 2 period here and there where I don't work on it. And because it's such a negative, dark, deep like project that like I almost feel like it's cursed in a way. Like when I work on it, it pulls me into this dark, depressed state of mind. Whereas like when I'm in that state of mind, I feel like I can work on it really well because I can express myself and put all this stuff into a screen and make these beautiful things. But when I'm like in a good mood and I'm great and I want to get stuff done and I'm productive, like diving into that project is almost like, I don't know, like it's so dark and deep. It brings me down with it. So launch day is scary, but then I would also say, believe it or not, all of the stuff that scares me is all of the compatibility issues, all the menu screens, all the like.
All the UI.
All the UI, like making controls swappable and stuff like that, but like maintaining a UI with it. So like I have to make actual sprites for like all of the buttons on the keyboard and stuff like that. Like just making all that work and look good.
Controller support is probably something you want to have in the game as well, I guess.
Yeah, like and random resolution settings or like subtitles for all of the audio in the game. Stuff like that there's so much work. When you think you're done with your game, there's still so much. That needs to much work as I got to do in the actual game. Like that's the stuff that really scares
me. Yeah, I cannot get that, especially if you have to do all of that stuff on your own. And I don't know how difficult that is with Construct 2. Is a lot of that stuff built into the engine, or is all of that stuff you need to build from ground up?
All manually, especially the subtitles and stuff, and the controls. That's all going to be like it's not that complicated to get it running. I'm more worried about like the whole UI aspect of it because the game is so minimal and so like. There's really no words or anything on the screen. There's no like instructions. I'm just worried about integrating it without ruining the clean look of like the game. Like how do I tell somebody that they need to press this button to use the heart without like telling them that, without just putting some stupid little prompt and breaking them out of this immersion that's there.
Okay. So actually the subtitles reminded me what I wanted to ask earlier. I didn't know there was a narrative and cutscenes in the game. What is the narrative about? I assume it probably reflects your journey of going through those emotions.
Yeah. I don't do a good job, especially on my channel, of like really talking about it, to be honest. I need to talk about it more, especially as we get closer to launch day. So the basic narrative, without spoiling anything, this guy, he's living a happy life. He's with his girlfriend. He is super happy, and she breaks up with him, and she goes off with somebody else. And he decides the solution to that was to kill himself. So he kills himself, and he has his broken heart in his arms, and he gets sent to hell. And love is his literal hell. And there are 5 stages based on the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression. And then there's a final stage where you are literally battling the physical representations of these emotions, both in the enemies and in the bosses. And during each one, you acquire an ability based on your suppression of whatever you're trying to, fight from. And there's a narrative that kind of follows Stuart's journey. The guy's name is Stuart. As he kind of acquires these different abilities until he has to make a final choice. And it's very emotional. Honestly, the focus at first was the like hardcore gameplay, but I think the focus recently has kind of shifted to interesting mechanics and storytelling. And so I would say that the storytelling is probably one of the bigger focuses in the game, and I don't do justice to that at all in what I share.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I actually didn't know that. I thought it was a pretty mechanics-driven game.
Yeah. So
and what I really like about that is that it seems like you're trying to combine the gameplay with the narrative, or to make them interact a bit more with that shield mechanic and stuff like that. I think that's exactly what a game like this needs. So
yeah, and that's what I felt like that was missing, and I didn't know why, but it was because I was just telling them the story and then having them play something that was kind of disconnected. Like this, they're actually playing the story. Like they literally have to choose to use their broken heart as a shield for these malicious enemies. That's kind of symbolic in itself.
So I found a video of yours about difficulty curves in games, where it talked about the difficulty in Philophobia a little bit, that some players prefer the really hardcore levels and some prefer the easier stuff.
Yeah.
What is the route you're gonna take with this?
So the focus of the game actually shifted that a lot, because if you're making a tough as nails platformer, then throw in all the hard levels, right? Make it difficult to make people regret playing it. Throw in the rage levels, all that stuff. But if you're making a story-based game, you want people to finish the story. And one of the ways to discourage them from finishing the story is making really difficult levels. So the approach that we're actually going to take, and I want to put a caveat here, because some stuff may or may not make it into the game. We have a hard launch date. But what I want to do is I want to have the basic campaign somewhat simple. The main campaign, the primary objective with it is just to teach you the mechanics, maybe challenge you a dozen times throughout the game, like with really difficult levels, and then have some of the ridiculously hard levels, like some of the levels that are like literally one screen that took testers 45 minutes to get through, like just one screen levels. Put those levels at the end in some sort of unlockable fashion, to where they can be unlocked afterwards.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And what's actually about puzzle levels and exploration levels? Will those kinds of levels still be in there? And how will you balance that sort of stuff out?
So puzzle, and this is something I'm still struggling with, to be honest, so I don't have a definitive answer. But hardcore platforming and puzzles definitely take a different part of your brain. And I've noticed if you put them together, it can kind of be jarring because like people like hardcore jump, super memorize all the moves, and then now they got to sit there and like think, right? And just like wonder what to do. So they can kind of break up the gameplay a little bit, especially with how the game is designed. It's instant restart. So you die, you try again, you die, you try again. Like it just keeps you in that loop. The puzzles kind of stop you, at least in gameplay testing, from the game. They just like, they bring you to a full stop and you got to figure out what to do and where to go. I am playing with the possibility of puzzles. I don't know if any will make it into the game. I don't know what will happen. I definitely have some. And there's definitely some mechanics-based puzzles where you use your abilities to kind of change stuff in the level to progress. But I don't know the actual extent of what will make it in the game.
Okay, maybe, I mean, if you think about the different chapters you have in your game, the different phases of grief, maybe you can fit those puzzle mechanics to one of those stages. I'm not sure if that would work.
Yeah, actually right now
something like that would match.
In the bargaining section specifically, there's a lot more puzzles right now than anywhere else. And that's actually based around the boss mechanic too. He tries to manipulate you into doing things. So yeah, that's a good suggestion.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to talk you into anything, but I think one good way to go about it as well is just to decide on one main focus for the game. For example, skill-based jumping, and then just do a little bit of puzzles and some exploration levels, but just make them so easy that nobody will ever get stuck there. Because when people get stuck at these levels, I think that's when they'll get pissed.
No, totally. It's a balance too, though, right? Because if they're like super easy and they just run through, then the levels almost don't make sense to even exist there, because the scale of the game, like at this point, all the levels are in one screen. So you can see the whole level. Well, you can't see the whole level because of the shadow mechanic, but it's all visible there. So what I've noticed is like the easier levels can literally take like under 10 seconds to complete. So they literally like don't even make a difference in the actual playtime of the game. And if most of the time, if the levels are that easy, they get cut because it's too.
Yeah, it feels weird, probably.
Yeah, it's too, especially with the juxtaposition of like playing another level that takes you 20 minutes of 10 million times dying. Just running through something just seems weird in the game. So
yeah, especially if you consider the theme and the topic of your game, that love is literal hell.
Yeah,
I don't think hell is something where you just go through the level in 10 seconds. So
yeah, and I mean there are some levels that are designed to be less complex and less hard. Especially there's some levels that are designed more for the theme in mind, like they're designed to show you something or like deliver something in the lore, introduce an enemy or stuff like that. And those are easier because they're designed for teaching. But the flow of the game is really important to me. Because I've noticed like how like I have all my testers record themselves playing the game. So I watch them play the game. And I've noticed that the point at which they lose interest is where I break the flow. Because otherwise they're just in the game, right? They're not thinking about their baby or hopefully they're thinking about their baby, but they're not thinking about, the next meal or anything. They're just in the game. But the second you break the flow and they're like, oh, what do I do now? That's when they kind of back out of the game and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to end today's session. So keeping that flow going is super important to me. And I got to design around that.
Yeah, I imagine the toughest part of that is really just nailing the difficulty curve, as you've said. That sounds really tough, actually, to find a spot where you don't get stuck for too long, but you can't rush through the levels.
Especially for so many different players and experience levels.
Definitely.
It's rough.
Definitely. Okay, cool. So I think you had a marketing agency before you went into game development. So I'm a little curious, how will you approach the marketing for Philophobia? Do you have any ideas for that, or are you not at that stage in the development process yet?
That's a big question. That's like saying how to build a car. like, depends on the level of detail you want.
No, just pretty rough.
But,
do you think the YouTube channel will be enough, or will you reach out to media? What are the channels you'll use for marketing your game?
Okay, so in marketing, it's all about like figuring out what you want and then finding the ways to make it happen, right? And for me, like personally, the financial goals with Philophobia aren't a huge motivation. Like, yes, I'd like to make money. Yes, I'd like the game to be successful. But honestly, the main reason I want those things is not because of the money. It's because of like, if I can make this game successful, I can help other people do it. I can show people how I did it. I can do all that stuff. So, I think my main marketing kind of timeline is the next couple months or so. I'm going to be picking up talking about it a lot in various different platforms. I'm going to be meeting with a bunch of different people for various things. I was planning on having the game done by the end of the year, so in December, and then spending January and the first part of February completely on marketing, like 100% on marketing. I am planning a press campaign. I think the press will eat this game up with the Valentine's Day launch date. And
that's actually pretty smart. And also, I think one of the very big benefits you have is that it's a very relatable subject. I think pretty much everybody went through a breakup or something where love was literally hell. So
yeah, I posted one thing on Reddit and I got
it went crazy, right?
15,000 people to see my game. So yeah, it's definitely relatable. My main plan is probably a press campaign, to be honest, because I know with the launch day of like Valentine's Day, actually the technical launch day is February 10th, because I feel like the height of conversation about the game is going to be the 14th, which is Valentine's Day. So I'm launching a few days early to hopefully encourage the press to post about it on Valentine's Day. The last thing I want to do is have them post about it and not be out yet.
Yeah.
So that's my main objective with the campaign for those, 40 days of 2019 that I have. It's going to be a little bit rough because I noticed that there's a lot of high-profile games coming out this February, which is, it could be, compared to last February, there was like nothing that came out. So it could be a little difficult, but the community, I think I'm going to rely on to come through. I will definitely be marketing my game on my YouTube channel, on my email list, and I'm going to be talking about it a lot as I'm working on it. I'll be using it as a lot of examples and stuff, and I'll probably do a social media campaign as well based in various places that relate to the subject.
So I think you definitely managed to get me pretty excited for the game. I actually learned so much about it, and I'm really curious to play it now. So do you have still chances to play it before launch as a playtester? I think you have a Discord group as well with a couple of playtesters. Is that correct?
We have a few. As far as playtesting, I've noticed I have to playtest in waves. So like once my core group of people plays through something, if I make a bunch of tweaks to it and I'm trying to test the flow of something, I kind of have to get new testers in because they already know where all the obstacles are and how it all works. So in order for me to really see it, I kind of got to keep bringing people in. So there's always opportunities like that. I don't have an official way to kind of join.
Okay. I know this question might be a little weird. I would definitely hate this question if somebody would ask me this, but why are you excited for the launch of your game? Why are you excited to finally get it out there?
Do you want the honest answer? Speaking of honesty, I want this game out of my life, to be completely honest. I don't want it in my life anymore.
I totally get that.
It's like, for real, man, I would just totally rather make games about space because it should. It could be completely honest. Like, it's so rough and draining and so much work and so like I just want it gone. And I feel like it's never gonna leave my brain until I hit that launch button. So that's the main motivation for me to push it out.
Okay, awesome. So where can we go if we want to stay up to date with the development and if you don't want to miss the launch? I mean, obviously we're on your channel, so this is one place, I guess.
Yeah, one place is here on the channel. You can hit subscribe button. The other place is philophobiagame.com. That's philophobia.com. Or that's just philophobia. Philophobiagame.com. And you can subscribe to the email list there, which will get you on the list. If you want to be a beta tester or anything like that, the people on the list are the first pick. They'll see all the behind-the-scenes stuff. They'll see all the cool stuff that happens with the game. So if you want to be part of the game, I recommend you join that list.
Awesome. Great. So I think I got a lot out of you. Hope it wasn't too rough.
It's fun, dude. I actually haven't talked this much about the game ever, so it was awesome. Fun to do.
Okay, so there will actually be another video on my channel talking about Tim's favorite topic, which is quitting, because I'm actually a quitting addict. I've quit so many game projects, and I hope to get some help from Tim. Please help me.
Well, I think to clarify, quitting is my least favorite subject. Finishing is my favorite. But yes, if you guys want to see a video, if you want to see a video on how to finish games, on like what actually makes us quit, what stops us from finishing.
Yeah. You've made a lot of videos about that already, but I think this will be a little bit of a special treat.
Jonas and I put this together specifically for you guys.
Awesome.
Down here, so recommend you check the link out and his channel. He's got lots of cool game dev goodness over there, so it's a fun watch.
Cool. So one more time, thanks for having me, Tim. It was absolutely a pleasure.
No problem. Thanks for being here. See you guys later.
Bye.